Hi, welcome to my channel.
Hi, future me. I just wanted to go ahead and put a disclaimer in this video that there will be some graphic material. I added some images of blood and things like that. So if that's not your thing, please feel free to protect yourselves.
Unlike my last video, I'm talking about what happens in the seasons and not just the characters. So I'm going to do a little recap. In the first season, we are introduced to Elena, who runs into Stefan, who's a vampire. Happens, sometimes we run into vampires. Stefan and Elena get together. Stefan's brother, Damon, has come into town trying to mess things up between him and Elena and kind of trying to stir up trouble. Then we get introduced to other characters such as Jenna, who's Elena's aunt, Elena's brother, Jeremy, Matt and Tyler, Elena's two best friends, Bonnie, who's a witch, and Caroline, who gets turned into a vampire this season, which is pretty exciting. We're also introduced to Alaric, who is Elena's history teacher slash vampire hunter guy, and now Alaric is dating Jenna. It turns out that Elena was adopted. Isabel is Elena's birth mother, and Isabel is a vampire. Elena's biological dad is her uncle John, who got Isabel pregnant. Jenna is taking care of Elena and Jeremy because Elena's parents have died in a car accident where their car flipped off of a bridge, and Elena was in the car too, but she was able to escape. I haven't looked too much on vampire lore, so I really don't know what vampires are supposed to be in different religions or places, but I do know that there are actual vampires out there, which are just people drinking human blood, which is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard of in my entire life.
Stop it. Get some help.
Now we're gonna get into the juicy bits of season 2. Caroline is a vampire now. I love Caroline as a vampire. Caroline was in a really bad car accident, and Damon gave Caroline his blood so that way she would heal, because vampire blood in this universe heals humans. And of course, Damon did not give Caroline that blood out of the kindness of his heart. I think Damon is starting to feel guilty for a lot of the things that he does. So he's trying to make up for it and trying to be a good person, when indeed he is not and hasn't been for probably 146 years. Caroline and Stefan are now becoming friends. It's pretty cute. It's pretty cute. Stefan is helping Caroline through her vampire transition. I think Stefan feels responsible for everything that any vampire has ever done or will ever do. Stefan takes on so much guilt. I don't even understand how Stefan has not driven a stake through his own heart. He is going through a lot. Matt is still awful. Matt is making Caroline's accident about him. So when Caroline turns into a vampire, she's very finicky and she wants to stay away from Matt because you have that instinct to kill, and you also have that instinct to prey on another person and drink their blood. So Caroline is really just trying to stay away from Matt and just keep her distance, while also trying not to be weird. She's trying to keep her composure. She's trying to adjust to everything that's going on around her, and Matt is making it all about him. Caroline could have died. She was not looking good in the hospital, and yet here comes Matt. I just feel like I love you, and I told you that I love you, and then now you're acting weird even though you just got in a serious car accident.
Ooh, let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
That's Matt. Now I think I should talk a little bit about Catherine. Catherine is Elena's doppelganger. Back in 1864, which is not when Stefan and Damon were born, but when Stefan and Damon were turned and met Catherine, Damon, Stefan, and Catherine were in this love triangle that was concocted by Catherine, and ever since then, Damon and Stefan have been feuding, which is incredibly stupid. Catherine is always trying to say that she's truly in love with Stefan, but I think she cares about Damon too. I just think she just wants Damon to really leave her alone, which I don't blame her because Damon is a bit intense. Damon is kind of a weirdo and a creep. He's always getting involved and making things a lot worse for everyone around him. You kind of know exactly where Stefan stands. He is over her. He's done with it. He is still a little bit upset that he was manipulated, but it's kind of that upset where you just kind of am like, it is what it is. I just want you to leave me alone. I want you to stop having these weird agendas. I want you to just please exit left of my life. Catherine, on the other hand, she still likes to be manipulative. She still likes to pull the little puppet strings. So what Stefan does is he vervains her, which this whole time I thought it was Vervain, but it's a vervain. I feel kind of stupid. He like stabs her with one of these tools I think Alard gave him, and he ties her up and he puts her in this like, I actually don't even know what this place is. It's secret dungeon? I don't know. Catherine reveals that in 1864, she set up all the vampires that she knew and were in the town of Mystic Falls, which is where they live, to be gathered, found, and burned and put into a church. Now, I don't know exactly why she did this. She did have her handmaid, who was a slave, Emily Bennett, who is a witch. Sorry, this is a lot. She had her, I guess, preserve the vampires underneath the church in a tomb, so that way they could eventually be brought to life on a full moon with this specific stone necklace type thing and with a spell. Something I didn't talk about in season 1, but she later had them set up to be killed again. I don't know why she would save them. Just maybe she realized that they wouldn't be useful to her once they figured out that she was alive. And during this whole thing, Stefan is realizing that Catherine had a plan to free herself and to fake her death and all of that great stuff. And Stefan and Damon actually was shot by their father in the process of trying to save her because they were under the impression that she was going to be taken off and burned and killed. Catherine looks Stefan straight into his face and says, "You didn't die for nothing. You died for love." Huh? At that point, I was like, Stefan, kill her. Please kill her. Smack her. Do something. I died for love? Girl. No. And then we're introduced to a new character, which is Tyler's uncle, Mason. Mason is a werewolf. The werewolves in this universe that the Vampire Diaries has created they look pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I do really love the way that the wolves look. I love the way it looks when they turn. Mason is looking for the Moonstone. Catherine gave the Moonstone to the Lockwoods in 1864. And he's been looking around the old family home to try to find where the Moonstone is, because the Moonstone is supposed to break this curse. The Sun and the Moon curse.
Hi, future me again. I really didn't do a good job of explaining this when I first talked about it, so I want to give a quick rundown. The folklore tells us that werewolves are bound to the moon, which means they have to turn every full moon, and vampires are bound to the sun, which means that they burn in the sun. And Stefan and Damon have found a way around that. If a werewolf breaks the curse, then they can turn whenever they want to, and the vampires have to always burn in the sun. And if a vampire breaks the curse, they don't have to burn in the sun, but the werewolves always have to turn on a full moon.
Another part of the folklore is that a werewolf bite can kill a vampire. So once Damon finds out that a werewolf bite can kill a vampire, and even though he doesn't know anything else about werewolves, I mean, for a little while, he didn't even think that werewolves even existed. He didn't even know. They're a very rare species. Damon goes after Mason. Damon cannot leave anything alone, and he makes everything worse, which is why he feels all this guilt. Because Damon doesn't know anything about werewolves, like, at all, he fails. And what actually happens is Mason lives and exposes Damon and Stefan to Sheriff Forbes, who is Caroline's mom. Elena can sense, I guess she has this like third eye when she can sense that Stefan's in trouble. Or maybe it's because Elena is constantly blowing up Stefan's phone, and when Stefan doesn't answer, she kind of gets worried. So she goes to find him anywhere she possibly can think of, whatever. I don't know exactly why it's like that, but I think they have like a really unhealthy codependent relationship going on that I'm not even going to get into. Sheriff Forbes captures Damon and Stefan with Vervain and puts them down in the old Lockwood cellar, which is where they used to keep the slaves. So that was a little fun fact. Caroline ends up saving Damon and Stefan, where she just like rushes around the room and like knocks out everyone or kills everybody. And then her mom finds out that she's a vampire because she did that. I guess they kidnap, kind of voluntarily, kind of not kidnap Caroline's mom, and they put her in Damon and Stefan's secret dungeon. They wait till the Vervain leaves her system because, like all the other founding families, they are knowledgeable of vampires and they want to keep the town safe. So she's been drinking Vervain and all that. So once the Vervain leaves Sheriff Forbes' system, Caroline compels her to forget. But they do kind of have this moment before she does that where they bond, and Caroline's mom is able to accept Caroline, but Caroline knows that she is not going to accept the other vampires. So Caroline does what she has to do like a real boss and, keeps everybody secret and keeps everybody safe. Something weird that is happening around the same time that this whole thing is going on is Stefan wants to try to get stronger to protect Elena, and instead of now killing little rabbits, he wants to slowly get adjusted to blood. And instead of like sipping on a blood bag every now and then, he decides to start drinking Elena's blood. I mean, it was Elena's idea. Elena just does whatever the most ridiculous option is. Stefan is a blood addict. Think of the worst possible condition somebody can be in when they have an addiction. He cannot handle any type of human blood really being in his system, otherwise he turns crazy. And because of that whole incident where Mason exposed Damon and Stefan, Damon, Bonnie, and Stefan devise a plan to kidnap Mason. They end up finding out where the Moonstone, and then Damon ultimately kills him. Stefan and Elena find the Moonstone first. I think Damon calls Stefan and he's like, the Moonstone is here, blah, blah, blah. Stefan just jumps down there, not knowing that it's full of Vervain, and he just starts like burning because it's so toxic to vampires, and he just starts burning and he's like so distraught, but it's just so funny to me. Stefan is one of my favorite characters, but somehow it still just made it funny to me. When Caroline gets there and she lures Elena down on this like rope or whatever, and I think it's like a chain or a rope to get Stefan, and she hooks Stefan onto the thing, and she finds the Moonstone, but there's snakes in there, and I completely understand why she's going crazy, because I would start screaming. I think that's why I think it's so funny, because that's how I would react if I saw a bunch of snakes crawling over me. I don't know if I would have gotten down in the well in the first place. I would have been like, look, that Moonstone is just gonna have to stay where it's at. Put some wolfsbane in there, keep wolves, keep vampires, keep everybody out of here. I can't. Finally, they get the Moonstone after all that trouble. Catherine has already threatened Elena and Stefan. If you don't break up, if you don't stay away from each other, there's gonna be some bloody consequences up in here. Over the phone, Catherine, well, I think Catherine probably already had her like compelled in some way, shape, or form, and then just kind of triggered it and gave her the go ahead to do what she told her to do. Jenna stabs herself in the stomach. I guess that was, that was the last straw for Elena. I feel like the last straw for Elena and her family and friends being in danger is when Damon viciously attacked Bonnie, but So this time they actually do break up for a little minute too. Elena was serious. At least when she really saw and understood the impact that it was having on her family, she did take a step back, and I respect that a lot. We learn a little bit about Tyler's family curse. Tyler has the werewolf gene in his body. If he kills someone, he will turn into a werewolf, but as long as he doesn't kill somebody, he will not become a werewolf. Catherine triggers Tyler's family curse by compelling this girl to try to go after Tyler, and he pushes her, and he is a little bit stronger than what he realizes. So when he pushes her, she hits her head on like this part of her head on the desk, which I think that might be an actual pressure point back there somewhere, and falls over and hits her head again. A double trauma onto the ground. And I guess it's because of how hard he pushed her, not necessarily that he did, but how hard he pushed her. She ended up dying. Now, that seemed kind of far-fetched to me, but I don't actually know what are the chances of that actually happening. Because Catherine can be a little bit overzealous, they did end up getting the best of her, and they captured her and locked her in the tomb where no vampires can leave. In the same tomb that she was supposed to be in back in 1864 when she faked her death, she's now locked in, which was pretty cool. But for some reason, they put the moonstone in there with her. I think it probably would have been better down in the well or something like that versus in the tomb, but they made that decision. The big kicker is that Damon is the one who gets to lock her in there, which is nice because Damon spent 146 years waiting to be able to free her from that tomb because he was in love with her for 146 years just to find out that she wasn't in there. If that's not cruel, I don't know what cruel is. But I'm going to end this video right there. Bye.